Why haven't you asked to meet my mom yet? Because she hates me. No, she doesn't. She just thinks you're not good enough for me and our people. Wow, saying it like that makes me super excited to meet her. Seriously, she should meet you. Once she sees how amazing you are, she'll realize she was wrong and accept us. Great. Let's have dinner, me, you, your dad, my mom, and my sister. Does Talia have to come? She kind of freaks me out. I promise Talia will behave. Plus, your dad being there might help. He can be charming. Yeah, but he doesn't think much of you. Exactly. If he's there, they'll have something to talk about. I won't let them bully you, my little vampire bat. Just trust me. By the end of dinner, maybe even your dad will change his mind about me. I'll need to practice my pig shape for when pigs fly. I was half asleep, drifting between dreams when I heard familiar whispers around me. As I woke up, I felt a surge of energy, filling my mind with colors, and I could almost smell Sarah's perfume. Are you almost done? Need help? I can do it myself, thanks. Clearly not, I would have finished by now. As the voices faded, my colorful dream disappeared, and I felt a rush of clarity, like waking from a deep sleep. Damn it, he's waking up. I told you the dosage was wrong. I must have dozed off again because the next thing I heard was my mom knocking softly on my door. Sweetie, did you sleep through your alarm? You have a 10 o'clock appointment. I jumped out of bed and scrambled to get dressed. But as soon as my feet hit the floor, I felt a little wobbly and foggy-headed. Was I getting sick? In the kitchen, I found Mom had made breakfast: bacon, eggs, hash browns, toast, and, thank goodness, coffee. I gulped down half a glass before she sat down. Someone's hungry. Did your date go well last night? I nodded, trying to chew and talk at the same time. Yeah, it was great. Maybe you could bring her home sometime for me to meet. I smiled. Actually, I invited her to dinner this weekend. Mom perked up. Fantastic. I'll cook my famous brisket and set the good china. This is so exciting. It's just dinner, Mom. No need to freak out. Oh, you're wrong. If she's special, it should be special. Whoa. We're not talking marriage, it's just dinner. Mom winked and glanced at the clock. Oh no, you need to get ready. Don't want to look like a slouch in front of a new client. I grabbed my plate and made a breakfast sandwich. Luckily, the client was running late. I took notes for a normal funeral, a school teacher who had died in an accident. I reminded myself to warn Sarah about my mom. She could be a little over the top. I texted Sarah. Just a heads up. My mom can get a bit excitable, she replied quickly. Tell her not to go too crazy. I'm only allergic to water chestnuts. I laughed, relieved she was okay with everything. Mom was great, warm, and protective. She cared for everyone, and if you were family, she'd do anything for you. Sarah took a moment to respond, then texted back, I can't wait to meet her. Looking forward to Saturday. Just then, someone knocked loudly on the door. At work, Lou held up a bar of gold. Nothing shines like dwarf gold. They make the best stuff. I laughed. I hope you brought enough. Of course. You think I can't handle this? Lou had brought me about $500,000 worth of gold, mostly for a solid gold coffin for a funeral in a few weeks, just in time for my weekend plans. So, how's it been going? Lou asked. Pretty good, I guess, I said, unsure of his interest. Someone asked about you recently, he said, looking a bit serious. Who? I leaned against the wall. Lou loaded a duffel bag full of gold. There's a new vampire clan causing trouble. They're not playing nice. My heart raced. Yeah, I've heard. They're making waves, right? Lou nodded. They've been attacking smaller groups, and it's only getting worse. That sounds bad, I said, thinking about the chaos it might bring. A group of guys in full armor came to Dad to trade crosses for cash. A few days later, Dad heard about a big explosion at an old factory on the Canadian border. Everyone knew a gang of vamps was using it as a hideout. Dad figured they were after him, but he told me not to worry about my friend Pierce. He probably knew about the Pope's secret operations. Who knows, he might have even been involved. I was curious. Why were they asking about me? It didn't seem like they wanted to talk about funeral plans. I thought maybe someone mentioned I had a contact with old Malcolm, and that my blood was special. That's what they were asking about, but I didn't tell them where you lived or anything. Not that they didn't already know. Thanks for the heads up, Louis. I hope their interest is just curiosity, I replied. Yeah, hopefully. Be careful, I wouldn't want you getting robbed in my front yard, he said. I promised I would and headed out. Besides meeting with the dwarf who was making the coffin, I needed to grab some ingredients for dinner on Saturday. Mom was going all out, smoking a Boston butt for my girlfriend, and she left me with a long list of items to pick up before tonight. If she was this excited about dinner, I could only imagine how she'd be if we actually got married. As I tied my tie, I got a text from Sarah. "Ooh, spooky! Never had dinner in a mortuary." I laughed and sent her a playful emoji. Not exactly in a mortuary, but pretty close. She replied with a picture of herself in a stunning green velvet dress. Her hair flowed beautifully down her back. I told her she looked amazing. Then she sent me another picture, one she must have taken earlier in her bathroom, that made me check behind me to ensure no one had snuck into my room. Just a little something to look forward to later. I made sure my phone was put away when I entered the kitchen. "Mom, Sarah is here," I announced. Mom had prepared a feast. The Boston butt smelled incredible, paired with mixed veggies, mashed potatoes, and strawberry cheesecake for dessert. Mom took off her apron and asked if she looked okay, just as there was a knock at the door. "You look great," I assured her, nearly running to answer. I opened the door to find my gorgeous girlfriend waiting. I pulled her in close, and we shared a couple of kisses before I led her into the kitchen. Mom was busy at the microwave warming peas and smiled at Sarah. But then something strange happened. It felt like the weather had changed, like storm clouds rolling in on a sunny day. Suddenly, the peas slipped from Mom's hands, and Sarah and I jumped back as they spilled all over the floor. "Mom, are you okay?" I rushed forward, worried she might have had a stroke. She shook her head, trying to smile, but it didn't quite work. "Oh, silly me. I must have had a moment there," she said, bending down to pick up the dish. "Sarah, it's nice to meet you. So very nice. Tyler, can you help me clean this up?" she said. "I need to visit the bathroom for a minute." She shuffled away, swaying a bit, and I helped Sarah get seated while I cleaned up the peas. "Well, that was quite the entrance," Sarah said, standing up to grab a dustpan. I apologized, explaining that Mom had been cooking all afternoon and was really excited to meet her. It must have gotten to her a little too much. Once we got the mess cleaned up, Mom returned, looking different. She wore a bracelet I hadn't seen in a long time and had on a sweet-smelling perfumes I didn't recognize. She apologized, saying she was just a little overworked, and invited us to eat. As Sarah picked up her fork, I noticed Mom's expression change. She stared at Sarah, almost in shock. "So, what do you do?" Mom finally asked while still staring at Sarah as if she might burst into flames. "Oh, I work part-time at Shell's nursery," Sarah replied. "We do flower arrangements, rehome small trees, and studied general horticulture. I see, Mom said, her fork moving up and down nervously. Tyler speaks very highly of you. I understand you've been spending a lot of time together. Her tone felt more like an accusation, and I shot her a confused look. Is something wrong, dear? Maybe it's the blackberries in my perfume? Sarah suggested, her eyes darting around. Mom interrupted, slapping the table with her palm. Don't play coy with me. What are your intentions with my son? He's no cradle babe, so I assume it's something more devious. Mom, I said, alarmed. What are you talking about? It's not my fault, Tyler. Your father wanted all this cloak and dagger nonsense. But if you're living in his world, you need to be smart. It's clear your date is a fae, and I won't let you put yourself in danger. I was stunned. Mom, she's not dangerous. Just calm down. Sarah was starting to cough, her face turning red. Maybe it's the four-leaf clover charm, she said, trying to catch her breath. Mom, please, you don't understand, I yelled. She's having an allergic reaction. Mom looked uncertain and dashed down the hall. I turned to Sarah, unsure if I should start chest compressions or look for an EpiPen. She was crying, tears streaming down her face. It felt so wrong that this was happening in my mom's cheerful kitchen, and as Sarah began to turn purple, panic rose within me. Then I heard fast footsteps approaching, and for a moment, I saw a knife in Mom's hand as she knelt beside Sarah. She swiftly plunged it into Sarah's thigh before I could stop her. Mom, what did you do? I gasped. But when she pressed down the plunger, I saw it was an EpiPen. Sarah gasped a few more times before her breathing normalized. We both stared at Mom in shock as she pulled the needle out and recapped it. Why do you have an EpiPen? I finally asked, bewildered. I have a lot of things. Tyler first aid kits, emergency supplies, and protection for the family. Remember, we're eatable. I need to be prepared for anything, she replied, looking ashamed. Apparently, I wasn't prepared for this. To our surprise, Sarah started to laugh, coughing between giggles. I think I missed the part where they said you can die from water chestnuts. I chuckled, relieved. That was my fault. I forgot to mention you were allergic. We all shared a laugh, the weirdness of the situation lightening the mood. Sarah got back in her chair, and Mom served her a fresh plate, this time avoiding the mixed veggies. So, how did you know I was part fae? Sarah asked, her curiosity returning. I didn't even know until I was 18. Mom smiled, but her expression was still conflicted. I was taught from a young age to spot the signs: vampires, fae, ghouls. Anything that looks human has a tell. You've got the ears, whether you know it or not. Plus, there's just something different about you. With succubi, it's the scent of brimstone, and with lichens, it's a slight animal smell. It's something you never really lose. Sarah nodded. You were right. I'm half. My mom is from a noble family, and my dad is human. But I get to choose, and honestly, I'm leaning towards being human. Mom looked surprised, and I felt shocked too. Fairyland is full of drama, but out here in the human world, I often felt lonely. Still, maybe I found a reason to stay. Mom smiled, and I could see her worry start to fade. I'm really sorry, Sarah. I misjudged you, she said. After years of chasing off creatures trying to steal my husband, I've been too hard on them. She looked away, trying to hide her feelings. When Sarah reached for her hand, Mom turned back to her. Your husband. Did he? Mom shook her head. No, it was my oldest, Stephen. He met her after a service, not even realizing she was different. He was just 16, and she changed him into someone I didn't recognize. I vaguely remembered Steven sneaking out to meet a beautiful girl by the edge of the forest. All I recalled was the yelling between him and my parents. They caught him sneaking out of his window, skipping school, and acting weird. They finally stopped it, but only after she lost interest in him. "Wow," I whispered. "Did he know?" Mom shook her head. "Your father kept everything a secret, just like he did with you. He was desperate to keep her away. That year, I planted blackberry bushes in the yard. Do you remember?" I nodded. "Yeah, Dad liked blackberries, but thought the bushes made us look pretentious. I also spread iron nails around the property every day while you were at school for a month," she continued. She wasn't a changeling, and the iron kept her away. We watched Steven for a while, and as her influence faded, he became himself again. I promised I'd never let that happen again, but I see now I was wrong in this case. "I'm really sorry," she said again. Sarah squeezed her hand, and when they smiled at each other, I knew everything was okay between them. "Ma'am, if you slice me a piece of that cheesecake, we can call it even." "That was better than I expected," Mom replied. "What? You thought it would be worse?" "Well, you're still alive, so I guess it didn't go completely off the rails," she laughed, kissing my cheek as I opened the door to her car. "But be ready. Eventually, you'll have to meet my mom, and she might actually eat you alive." I laughed, but Sarah just chuckled as I watched her drive away. The night had been wild, almost deadly, but what else did I expect? Every day at Ed Garvey Mortuary is about life and death. Why should introducing my mom to my girlfriend be any different? As I reached the bottom of the stairs, headlights flashed across me again. I turned, thinking Sarah had forgotten something, but it wasn't her. A black town car glided through the parking lot, the headlights pinning me like a bug. When it stopped, I was surprised to see Corey behind the wheel and Malcolm in the passenger seat, looking beat up. "What kind of fresh hell is this?" I thought. "Cornelius, I just don't understand why I should care," Corey sighed. Being in his dad's study always made him uneasy. It wouldn't be so bad if it didn't feel so creepy, like it was decorated by Tim Burton. The whole room was black and white, filled with dark wood and overly puffy furniture, like an emo rock album cover. "Dad, you're my only living parent, and it means a lot to me to have you at this dinner. I've already met Miss Victoria. She's a lovely girl, though she has terrible taste in men. But that's not really a crime," he continued. "Are you trying to rub it in that you fooled some beautiful woman into being with you? Bravo. You might actually be my child," his dad replied, closing his eyes and counting to 10. "Father, I'm planning to marry this girl, and I think it would be smart for you to meet Mrs. Robinson." Malcolm turned slowly, giving Corey a look of disbelief. "Did you just say your future wife is the daughter of Mrs. Robinson?" "Yeah," Corey said, not fully getting the shock. "Mrs. Valeria Robinson, the most eligible bachelorette, known for her adult film roles. The woman who's turned mortals into messes to the point of being famous in the lust ring." "I suppose I've never actually met her," Corey admitted. "She doesn't seem very fond of me. She calls me Cornelius." After some thought, I've decided to attend this dinner. Family is important to me, and it wouldn't look good if I didn't meet your future wife and her important family. "When is it again? Saturday? Will they be hosting us in hell? Or do they have a human home?" "I think they have a house nearby," Corey replied, a bit nervous. "Top shelf. With any luck, you'll have a new fiancé and a new mother by the end of the night," Malcolm said. "A dad? No, don't worry. I won't marry her until after your wedding, but I can't promise not to charm her." He chuckled as Derek came in, looking like a bodybuilder just back from the gym. Derek was huge, resembling a steroid-filled version of Guile from Street Fighter. His arms looked like they couldn't drop below his shoulders. He grunted in the doorway, looming like a giant. "Derek, be a dear and take my crushed velvet suit to the cleaners. I need it by Saturday. Also, get my tailored suit out. Cornelius needs to look his best for this dinner." "As you wish, my lord," Derek grunted, his eyes drifting over to Corey. "Nerd," he added, then stomped off. "I'm not sure inviting you was a great idea," Corey groaned, wincing as Malcolm placed a hand on his shoulder. "Nonsense. By the end of this dinner, your future mother-in-law and hopefully future stepmother will be singing your praises. It's about time you did something right, and you've really exceeded expectations this time. I can't wait for Saturday." Corey felt dread settling in. He hoped Victoria would still want to talk to him after Saturday. She wanted him there, but now he felt like he might ruin it. As he took blood from someone, he realized how nervous he was. It was kind of gross, but it had gotten easier the more he did it. Talking to Tyler helped clear his mind. "Why did you even invite him?" Tyler asked, genuinely curious. "I don't know. Victoria thought it would be a good idea for her parents to meet. How was I supposed to know her mom was one of hell's biggest stars? I guess it makes sense. The job market for sub-BYS is pretty limited. Plus, between takes, she has time to corrupt," Tyler replied. "Dad thinks he's going to charm Mrs. Robinson. If I end up in some romance novel, I'll just walk into the sunset." "Nah, do it at sunrise. Much more dramatic." Tyler winked, making Corey laugh as he removed the needle. Sometimes, a little chat with a friend was all he needed to see things clearly. As Malcolm and Corey rode in the limo Victoria arranged, the town faded away into open fields and quiet houses where families shared meals. Corey loved these hidden spots beyond civilization. Some of his best memories were late-night drives with his dad, enjoying the peaceful darkness and secrets of the night. They soon reached a neighborhood with stunning homes, far grander than the one he and Malcolm lived in. Their house was a sprawling residence, once grand, now a shadow of its former self. Malcolm didn't mind. The house had seen its share of break-ins, and sometimes burglars disappeared without a trace. Malcolm and Corey lived in a fortress against local troublemakers, while the Robinsons lived in a gated community by the Ohio River. No house there was worth less than $1 million, many worth even more. As they passed a beautiful property, Malcolm's eyes lit up, filled with excitement like a kid unwrapping a dream gift. "Take it in, my boy. This is where the rich and powerful play." They drove through a set of white marble gates and onto a sprawling green lawn, perfect for rolling around in. Corey watched peacocks strut by, their colorful feathers on full display. In the distance, he spotted a shimmering pool framed by grand Greek columns, all made of white marble. He couldn't help but wonder what the rest of the mansion looked like. As they parked outside the mansion, which made Corey's home look like a rundown shack, a well-dressed man opened the door. "Mr. Vontres," he monotoned, sniffling as Daryl climbed out. "Welcome. Allow me to show you in." Corey didn't need a guide. They had barely stepped up the stairs when someone squealed and ran up to him, throwing her arms around him. It was Victoria, dressed in a stunning outfit that made her look like a delicate white bird. Her hair was a wild reddish-black cloud framing her face. "You made it. Welcome to Chateau Robinson," she exclaimed with excitement. "Oh, hello again, Mr. Vontres," Victoria said with a charming smile. "Let me introduce my friend Daryl. He'll be joining us tonight." "Not too many questions, I hope?" the butler asked in a flat tone. "Oh, not at all. The cooks made too much food already. Daryl, do you like your meat cooked or rare?" he continued, still monotone. Corey shot Daryl a warning look, his gaze lingering on Victoria a bit too long. Victoria slipped her arm around Corey's, and in that moment, everything else faded away. Walking into Chateau Robinson felt like stepping into a dream. Crystal chandeliers sparkled in the foyer, and everything glimmered in soft shades of white and cream. Malcolm's cane clicked on the marble floor as he led them to dinner, seemingly oblivious to the butler's disapproving glares. Corey stole glances at the lavish interior, a grand sitting room with high ceilings and another stunning chandelier, a cozy den with a crackling fire, and a dining room where Talia, who Corey had met before under awkward circumstances, sat next to Mrs. Robinson, whom he hadn't met yet. The family had chosen a theme for the evening, all dressed in white and shining with sequins and jewels, each resembling a different kind of bird. Victoria looked like an elegant swan, while Talia resembled a fierce white raven with sharp, jewel-like feathers. Mrs. Robinson, in contrast, looked like a peacock, her bodice sparkling with vibrant colors, a mink stole draped over her shoulders, and a glittering tiara in her hair. "Welcome to our home. We're honored to have you," Mrs. Robinson said, her smile dazzling. Corey and Malcolm bowed, while Daryl stood stiffly, almost like a statue. "It's a pleasure to share a meal with such a notable family," he replied, still monotone. "I can imagine," Mrs. Robinson said, gesturing to the grand dining table. Malcolm and Corey took their seats, with Victoria sitting next to Corey. After an awkward moment, Daryl slid into the chair closest to Malcolm. As salads were served, Malcolm poked at his while Corey dove in. Vampires might not eat food, but Corey enjoyed the flavors, enhanced by his heightened senses. Mrs. Robinson watched the trio closely, while Malcolm flirted with her, winking over his plate of watercress. He seemed to lose his appetite, pushing the plate away. "So, Mr. Ventras, please call me Malcolm. We're practically family now," he said, trying to keep it light. Mrs. Robinson pursed her lips, clearly wanting to keep things formal. "What do you do for work?" Malcolm launched into an exaggerated story about running a national supply chain that employed vampires, allowing them to thrive on unworthy labor. "The mortician is one of your clients, isn't he? It's nice of you to care about the common folk," she replied, sipping her wine. "Of course, money is good, but discreetly feeding off the commoners is getting harder every year. Being paid in blood just makes sense," Malcolm said, slurping loudly. "Corey, was it?" Mrs. Robinson turned her attention to him. "Do you help your father with his work?" "Yes, ma'am. I manage the Ohio route, one of the largest in the region. It's a lot of work, and having him take over the route has really helped me focus on the bigger picture," Corey's father added. Corey was shocked. Was this praise from his dad? "Well, it's good to hear he has a business mind," Mrs. Robinson said, delicately tracing the rim of her wine glass. Corey felt a rush of pride, a feeling he wasn't used to, but then he braced himself for the inevitable blow. "Yes, it's a surprise. Corey has disappointed me before. Imagine my shock when he finally decided to take up the family business. I was worried he'd be sleeping in a coffin forever. There it was. Lady Valeria, oh, I believe Mrs. Robinson would suit me better," Malcolm interrupted. "Do you plan to return to adult films anytime soon? Your last film, Hellwalkers of the Red Light District, was such a triumph that a sequel would be a shame to pass up." "You're a fan of adult films, Mr. Ventras?" she asked, clearly intrigued. "Especially when the star is so captivating," he replied, and the two dove into a lively discussion, while Corey and the Succubi sisters tried to ignore it. "So, Talia, I haven't seen you around the house lately," Corey said, attempting to keep the conversation flowing. "No, I've been busy with Schemes, she replied. Plans that need time to grow, Victoria added, raising an eyebrow at her sister. But the topic quickly faded away. Talia shot Corey a disdainful look, but returned to her meal. Their last conversation had gone badly when Talia had told him he was wasting Victoria's time. She can waste time with you if she wants, but don't get too comfortable. You're just a footnote in her story. Never forget that. The tension hung thick in the air until Mrs. Robinson suggested drinks in the den. In the sitting room, Daryl chose to stand by the window while the Succubi sisters sat on one couch and the Ventres family on the other. Excellent wine. I'd say it's a 1876 Fleur de Meaux. A fine year, Malcolm remarked. Quite knowledgeable about your wines as you are about adult films, Mrs. Robinson shot back. Corey, what are your intentions with my daughter? She asked, getting straight to the point. I assume this dinner is your chance to declare your feelings instead of sneaking around. Well, I hope to ask her to marry me one day, if she'll have me, Corey stammered. Victoria's smile was wide enough to tell him she would, but Mrs. Robinson looked as if she'd bitten into a sour lemon. Very sweet, but we both know I can't allow that. I've let you play at love, but I can't let him complicate things. You're meant to bear the next generation of incubi, and for that, you need a mate worthy of the task. Her eyes shifted to Corey, and he felt a chill run down his spine as her pupils morphed into cat-like slits. You are a disappointment to your kind, a spineless little night child who will ruin my daughter's chances with weak blood. You especially are unworthy. You don't know me, ma'am, Corey replied, trying to stand his ground. Oh, I know you, Cornelius Ventres. You sneak through my home when I'm not here. You court my daughter without my consent. You don't even introduce yourself to me. Yes, I know you, a coward who doesn't care for common courtesies. That's enough. I won't stand here and let you insult my son. Corey's father stepped in, anger flashing in his eyes. He may not be the son I wanted, but he is my son. He is a vampire, and his lineage stretches from Carpathia across Germany to Italy and this new world. Your daughter is a fine girl, despite her upbringing, but my son deserves better than your slanders. Come, Corey, we're leaving. We've had enough of this harpy and her crowd. Fine, be gone. You are not welcome here. I have much to say, she retorted, but everyone turned to look at Victoria. Victoria Amelia Robinson, sit down, Mrs. Robinson commanded. I won't. You've insulted my guests and my fiance. If they're unwelcome here, then so am I. Clarence, pack my things. I'm leaving. Yes, miss, a bored-looking servant replied. If you do this, if you side with these mongrels, I'll cut you off. You'll lose your inheritance and your home, Mrs. Robinson warned. Victoria looked shaken for a moment, but when she glanced at Corey, her resolve hardened again. I'll send for the rest of my things. And by the way, Fleur de Meaux is a wine for those with no taste. Try something real or stop pretending you're drinking just for fun. Outside the gates, Victoria stood with a bag over her shoulder, still wearing her fancy party dress. The other three looked around, unsure of what to do next. Well, I've been kicked out of worse dinner parties, Daryl said. Do you think a cab will come out this far? Let me check, Victoria replied, pulling out her phone. But just then, a group of shadowy figures appeared, striding up the street. Malcolm's expression darkened as he spotted them. There were 6 of them, and one was a nearly 7-foot-tall mountain of muscle. Daryl stepped in front of Malcolm, trying to protect him. Get out of here, son, Daryl urged. They're after me, not you or Miss Victoria. Just get her to safety. But just go! Daryl cracked his knuckles, ready to confront them. but as they overwhelmed him with fists and snarls, he fell like a scarecrow in the wind. "Gentlemen," Malcolm called out, "if you could kindly stop manhandling my friend, I'm sure we can work this out." One of the tough guys, with blonde hair almost brushing a street lamp, grinned at Malcolm as he stepped forward. "Oh no, you're not getting out of this one. Gabriel wants your territory and your source for that special blood. Sorry, but I don't give away my secrets. A bad businessman sells his golden goose. So what? You're going to make this hard." Malcolm, waiting for his moment, suddenly lunged forward, hitting the bruiser square in the throat. The man fell to his knees, gasping. "You know, it's funny. No matter how immortal you are, nobody likes a punch to the throat. Who's next?" The others looked less intimidating now as they gathered around Daryl's fallen form. With his arms crossed and a grin on his face, Malcolm seemed to think they might get through this after all. "Now I'll ask you again. Let my friend go and get back to your shallow graves." But before he could finish, a bruiser lunged forward, fist plunging through Malcolm's chest. Corey didn't even see it coming. The guy's fist tore through Malcolm's fancy suit and pushed him to the ground. "Run!" Corey shouted at Victoria, but she was already sprinting toward Malcolm, fire blazing in her eyes. With a swift move, she sliced off the bruiser's arm, blood spraying as he swung at her. She rolled out of the way, pushing Malcolm away from the chaos. When the bruiser's other arm slammed down, pinning her to the ground, she looked for Corey, but he was gone. "Keep dreaming, sweetheart," the bruiser sneered. "That little runt is only good for running." He lifted his fist high, and the others charged in, ready to overwhelm Victoria and Malcolm. Then, out of nowhere, a town car came barreling down the street, crashing into them at 40 miles an hour. The smaller ones were thrown aside, and the bruiser went flying into a nearby tree. Corey jumped out, yelling for them to get in the car. "Hurry! We've got to get back to the house and get some blood in you. You'll be back on your feet in no time." "No, we have to help Daryl. He's in danger because of me. If they get answers from him, they'll come after us next, and I can't let him get hurt. Dad, you've got a hole in your chest. I'll heal, but we need to do what's right and help him. Dark Prince, when have you ever done what's right? Now's not the time to start." And that's how they screeched into Garvey's Mortuary parking lot at 11:35 p.m., finding a front door ripped off its hinges. Inside, the only bodies were not alive.